Okay, video journal number 2, right? And the premise of this one is that you need to find a mentor in whatever you're doing in your life. You need to find a mentor because that mentor is going to be the one pushing you, right? So the book that I'm reading talks about a story of Michael Faraday, and he's a scientist. I think he kind of was the one that revolutionized electromagnetism, right? So he was a simple guy, was going to follow in his dad's footsteps on whatever he was doing. Didn't want to do that, so he found a job at a bookstore, a shop where they sold books, right? And the owner wanted to give him money because he knew his family was low in income, right? So years pass, and he's working at this bookstore, and he's always fascinated by science, knowledge. He always wanted to learn. He didn't want to do what his dad was doing. So random day, his at his work, a book randomly came, and I forgot the title of the book, right? But it basically taught you how to go about life, how to go through life. And my book that I'm reading talks about how he brought it everywhere. He took this book everywhere and followed it step by step, basically leading him to everything he was doing, right? Michael Faraday believes that it was God that put him through everything, as he should, right? That it brought him to his next adventure, all these doors opened because he believed in God and all that. And the book that I'm reading talks about that the same thing because he was Sandemandian or something like that, right? So didn't have money, wanted to follow the science, right? And went out to all these, basically back then they used to do like shows in front of you of like what science was. And so that's where he learned. He would take notes, he would do all these notes, and he came across a guy named Humphrey Davy, right? And Humphrey Davy later became his mentor. And Faraday knew, the scientist, he knew that if he can just learn everything from Faraday, that he would be successful, right? And that'll take me to my lesson. But first, let's finish the story, right? So all these doors are opening up for Faraday. And one day at Humphrey Davy's shop, his mentor, his assistant gets fired, right? So who leaves that open? For Faraday to take over. But Faraday didn't do anything in the lab. He was just watching Davy's every step. Basically like when you have a tennis instructor, right? I remember reading the book of Inner Game of Tennis. When you're a tennis instructor, it's very hard to hit it this way, hit it that way. No, usually the tennis instructor shows off. Almost like my field where I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I don't say, okay, next we have Bulgarian split squats. Everyone would just be like, okay, what is that? So I have to show it. I have to say what I want from this exercise, the goal is. And that's basically what he took from his mentor. He would follow him around the labs, see how he mixed all these chemicals together, how he did this electricity, and basically all that, right? So he learned and learned and learned and used them as a mentor. And when you have a mentor, you try to use them as best as possible, right? So in the future, Faraday, because I'm talking about him, becomes famous because he led the 20th century of the electrical energy and all that. So he was like one of the main factors, but it came from a poor family, all these doors open, a book came into the bookstore, fell in love with science, right? All these steps led to him finding a mentor, and even a mentor in the book, or a mentor of a random person at a bookstore giving him the book, and all those steps that he took to get to where he was, right? So that leads me to my first lesson, which is learning demands humility, right? To learn, you need humility. And humility is like, there's going to be people in your profession or in your world, just like mine, where there's going to be a lot of people that know more than you, right? And you have to have humility, right? Because when I first came into the profession that I'm in, you have to think like these people have experience, these people have more time and experience than you do, right? So for my profession, it's strength and conditioning, how to read a room, how to orchestrate a room, how to flow the weight room when you have 100 student athletes working out, how to do all that, how to deal with athletes who aren't feeling it, how to deal with athletes who just don't want to work out, right? So all those things I'm watching through my mentors of how do they do that? How do they get them motivated to come work out when they have all these hours, right? And yeah, so mentors are the ones that are going to give you all that success. And like I said, valuable insights. And for me, I've always tried, like the last video, I've always tried to look at everyone and see what they've done for me as I can do for them, because it creates like a mutual respect, right? Because if someone could teach you something, right? Then you build that connection because you give life back to them. It's almost like when I have freshmen, right? August comes in, freshmen come in, and the seniors. I'm not going to put them both on separate sides. I'm going to have the freshmen work out with the seniors because then the seniors get light back into the room, right? So they get life back into what they're doing because they get to explain everything as if they were a freshman, just like the cycle goes on, right? So to understand that mentors had mentors, right? So the cool thing about having a mentor is that whatever you learn from them, they've learned from that mentor, then their mentor learned from that mentor. And I think that's just cool because whatever I am, like right now, the present, I'm a coach. So I'm learning from different coaches and they've had to learn that from someone. Then their coach had to learn that. And I think that's just great because it's just generations, and then it's you, right? And then you get to pass that on to when you get a mentor, when you get to start an apprenticeship of under you, right? And then basically like the last lesson is that you have to start to let your mentor go, right? So a lot of people try to keep their mentor for a long time. And at the end of Faraday's story, his mentor Davy starts to discredit Faraday because he basically said, like, I took him in. He tried to take the credit. And it was just stuff like that, right? Like, oh, you didn't become successful because of you. I showed you everything. And that's how you became successful. And that's when the mentor, right, when you got to start leaving your mentor, right? And so at the end of the book, I'm going to say it right here. I'm probably going to say it wrong in Spanish. It says, Al maestro cuchillada. And basically that says, to the master goes the knife. And basically it's like a Padawan, right? When you become skillful enough to, it's a fencing expression, right, with the knives. And basically when the Padawan becomes skillful to finally get their master, and that's to the master goes the knife. And basically that saying is you gotta slowly start detaching yourself from your mentor to become the best version of yourself. And that's with anything, right? Once you start outgrowing people, then you start to realize like, oh, that person wasn't good for me or stuff like that. But that's a different topic, right? So it says in any event, you will probably have several mentors in your life, like stepping stones along the way to mastery. At each phase of your life, you must find the appropriate teachers, getting what you want out of them, moving on, and feeling no shame for this. It is the path your own mentor probably took and is the way of the world. So basically, your mentor had to leave that mentor to become the best version of themselves, right? And then they become the best version, and finally they get an apprentice that they get to teach everything to, right? So I've had many mentors. Haven't had time to leave my mentors, but every day I'm always trying to see what I can learn from someone, whoever I'm looking up to, right? And how they, like I said, my profession is in the weight room. So how they talk to athletes, how the athletes respond to them, how should you respond if they do this or that, or, you know, there's always the saying of there's going to be 35% that want to work out and be in there, and then the other rest don't, right? But don't focus yourself on the people that don't. Focus on the good, because then that good is going to start bringing the people who don't want to work out, right? So yeah, I just like that. It is the path your own mentor probably took, and it is the way of the world. Just keep on learning from other people. So don't know if you got anything from that, but basically find a mentor and learn anything you can possibly from them. And if you don't have a mentor, go and find one, because you will, because God will send you one, right? So yeah, I think that's it. But yeah, so I think it's also cool because, like I said, when you have a mentor, you're learning everything that they've learned from the past. And not only that, the greatest lesson is that when you have a mentor, they get to steer you so that you don't make the same mistakes or fails that they did. And if you do make the same mistakes, then they probably aren't your mentor. But that's pretty much it. That's my daily journal too. Go find a mentor. You got it. Michael Faraday, electromagnetism. Find a mentor. Go.